Welcome back to another tutorial here at Beans, Bags and Handicrafts. Today we are going to be making the Martini crossover bag by Sew Yours Patterns. This is a brand new designer. She's got this one and the Kensley bag out. I will be doing a tutorial on the Kensley as well, so keep watching for that. And she's got a third pattern that is in testing right now, so I'm super excited to introduce this designer. So this is the bag we're going to be making today, the Martini. Let me show you some of the features of this bag. So this bag is so customizable. You could do it all in fabrics. I've chosen to do it in more faux leather for this one. And then this is just a cotton print that I bought at Fabricland. It's got the optional crossbody strap. You can do this or you can leave it off. You can make your straps as long or short as you want. It's got 2 slip pockets here and 2 slip pockets on the back. And you can always leave this as one big slip pocket, or as I've done, 2 small slip pockets. You could leave it off the back. You could do whatever you want. It has a recessed zipper. And on the inside, I did my typical zipper or interior zipper pocket and slip pockets, because I do the interiors of my bags all the same. Hers is great too. What else? What did I use for fabrics? I forgot to save the salvage, so I can't tell you what this is, but I bought it at Fabricland, and it matches the Mora faux leather in mustard perfectly, which made me happy. All my hardware is in matte black, and it's from Atelier Fiber Arts. I will leave the link down below towards, so you can go and get your own. The matte black is just super amazing. I am getting my nameplates. I have a gunmetal one on here, but I have ordered them in matte black, and I'm so excited to get those because this hardware option is awesome, and she is a Canadian supplier, which makes me even happier. What else about this bag? Interfacing wise, I use Pellon Flex Foam. For the medium woven interfacing, I actually tried EZEFuse, which you can also get at Atelier, I can't even say it, Atelier Fiber Arts. I found it very comparable to what WovenFuse was. It's very nice woven interfacing. It's a little bit heavier than SF101. I primarily use SF101 because I do sell it. Again, my store is linked down below if you need to be able to get Pellon interfacing of any sort, or any of the Decovils. I do have them in my shop. In the bottom, I did use some Decovil Heavy as a base stabilizer foam. And yeah, the EZEFuse. That's about it. I don't know what else to say about this bag. It's beginner friendly. It is domestic machine friendly. It does not look like a beginner bag, but it is so easy to do. I strongly urge you to make this bag. It is just, I just love this pattern. I'm so excited to explore her other 2 patterns. So without further ado, let's get making this bag. Okay, so what you're going to need for this bag are medium size rivets, number 5 zipper tape, three number 5 zipper pulls, 1 slider, 2 swivel clasps, 2 D-rings, 5 purse feet, a zipper end, 2 strap ends, your nameplate, two exterior main panels, two gusset pieces, the lining and the exterior. Now I did both my gusset pieces with the exterior gusset piece, and I'll explain that later on in the pattern why I did that. I also cut out 4 exterior gusset ends. Again, the pattern calls for 2. I did 4 because I'm going to be putting gusset ends on my lining pieces as well, which is actually why I cut them to the exterior piece. Two exterior zipper panels and 2 lining zipper panel pieces. Two handle anchor pieces. Two handle pieces. Two exterior and 2 lining pieces for the front and back pockets. Again, all of my cotton pieces are backed with the woven interfacing. In this case, I am using EZEFuse, which I got at our Atelier Fiber Arts. A piece of bottom stabilizer, I am using Decovil Heavy. Your crossbody strap piece. And your 2 lining panel tops. Your 2 connector pieces for the crossbody strap. Your slip pocket piece. And 2 lining zipper pocket pieces. Two lining panel bottom pieces. Now I am doing my interior zipper pocket and my slip pocket different, as I do them the same in all my bags. So I cut these 2 pieces. So let's prepare our connectors. So I decided that I'm going to be doing fold down, so I'm adding in fold down straps. So I'm adding in 4 connector pieces and 4 1-inch rectangular rings. So to make our connectors, so we'll start with the crossbody strap. What I did was I folded the long edges in. For some reason, that video did not get in here, into the center, just like you do for any connectors. Put in the D-ring and fold it in half, wrong sides together, like I am doing here. So that's the D-rings done. And I'm going to do the same for my 4 connector pieces. What I like to do when I'm top stitching these is I like to chain stitch them. So I thought I would show you guys the process of how I do my straps all at once like this. Especially when you don't have a machine that does the thread cutting for you, this just saves on some thread waste. So these are the 4 connectors for my fold down handles that I'm doing. And we were going to assemble them the exact same way that we assembled our D-rings. So we prepared them by folding the long edges into the center, top stitching the left and right sides, putting the rectangular ring, folding it over wrong sides together, and just stitching the bottom to hold them in place. Again, I am chain stitching these as I basted them in half. Okay, so now let's create our front and back pocket pieces. So you're going to take the exterior pocket piece and the lining piece, and we are going to put them right sides together and clip them together along the top. Okay, and then we are going to stitch them together along this line with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And you'll do that with the opposite side as well. Okay, so this is what we have. So now I'm going to take my pinking shears and I am just going to trim that seam allowance down to about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, just so we get a really nice curve there. Then you want to bring them wrong sides together and you want to press out that seam nice and flat, making sure that you're popping out those curves so we get an excellent shape to our pockets. So because I am using all cotton, I can take this to my iron and I can press this nice and flat. If you are using vinyl, make sure you finger press it really good. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to iron it and then I'm going to top stitch this with a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance and do the exact same thing with the other one. Okay, so preparing our panels. So we're going to take that pocket piece, we're going to put it over our exterior main panel, align the centers on the bottom, and line up the raw edges on the side. What you may find is that the pocket piece is slightly larger than the exterior main panel. That is okay. That is allowing for a little bit of give for our pockets, so they won't be tight and lay completely flat. This gives us room to be able to put articles into the pocket. So we're going to go and we're going to base this onto, base these together with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance along the outside edges, and you will do the exact same thing with the other panel. Okay, so you can see here how it billows a little bit, and that is what we want. That is perfect. So now it's up to you whether you want to split this into 2 pockets or just leave it as one large pocket. I'm going to split both panels into 2 pockets. So I'm going to find the centers of my panels simply by folding them in half and doing small snips to mark the center. And then I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to draw with my chalk pen a line just on the pocket piece down the center. And then what I'm going to do is take this to the machine and I am going to top stitch it up 1/8 from that line and 1/8 down the left side of the line. So we'll get 2 lines. And I'm going to do the same with my other panel. So you can see how I am going up 1/8 to the right of that chalk line. I'm putting my needle down, pivoting, and then going down the other side of my chalk line with a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. And that is creating my 2 pockets with a little bit of decorative stitching. Rinse and repeat with the other panel. Or if you want to, you can leave the other panel as one large pocket. It's completely customizable to what you want to do with it. Okay, so those are done. We have our 2 pockets which have a slight billow, which is exactly what we want. Now I am doing the option of putting the zipper on the front of the bag. Now I am doing the vinyl version, so I will have a raw edge. If you are doing the cotton version, make sure you follow her instructions in the pattern how to do it with woven fabrics. So what I'm doing is just laying my pattern piece down and I am going to mark where the zipper is going to be placed. Now I'm just doing the 2 short ends of that marking because I am going to use the tool that my dad made me on his 3D printer to draw nice straight lines here for me. So I'm just going to line up my number 5 zipper template here. Actually, first I am going to make sure that I am even on both sides to where it's going to go, and even from the top and bottom, so I know I will not have a crooked zipper. And if you have a 3D printer, this is an awesome tool to print. Okay, so I'm just marking that with my marking pen. And then I'm going to double check again that I am nice and straight, because this is a focal point on the front of my bag and I want to make sure I am even and not crooked. And I am good. Then I'm going to take my little rotary cutter, watch your fingers, and I'm just going to cut along those the long straight lines. And then take my scissors in to cut those little short edges. You want this to be as neat and clean as you possibly can have it, because these raw edges are going to show. Okay, then what I like to do is just take my lighter and I just like to burn away any stray little strands that may be hanging out there. Careful not to burn your fabric too much here, but this just takes away the little fraying hairs or strings or whatever may be in there. And then what I am going to do is, I have Giardini Edge coat, so I am actually going to go ahead and apply a base coat and then a color to this raw edge just to seal it in a little bit. Okay, so prepping my zipper, I've got my zipper lining and I have my zipper tape. So I'm going to take some of my double-sided tape and I'm going to put it on each of the short edges of my zipper lining piece. And then with our lining panel right side up and our zipper right side up, I am going to stick one edge of the zipper tape to the top part of this lining panel. Now, if you don't want to use double-sided tape, you are more than welcome to use clips. My machine can handle the double-sided tape, so it is my preference. And then I'm going to go ahead and stitch this on with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I've also put my zipper foot on my machine. I find it a lot easier to get nice and close to the teeth this way and to have a nice straight zipper. Okay, so once you've done one side, then you are going to take your tape off with the other side and stick the other side of the zipper tape along that edge. So we're kind of making a big loop here. Make sure that it's nice and even on both sides. And then stitch that together. Now for the rest of this pocket, I am doing it slightly different than the pattern. She keeps it all in one loop like this. I have a hard time doing that. That's just me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my loop at the bottom here to make 2 pocket pieces. This just makes it easier, in my opinion, for sewing this onto the bag. And you'll see why when we get to that point. So I'm going to take this to my iron and I'm just going to press my zipper flat. Okay, so you can see here I have my paint has dried. I have a nice colored edge. Now I am going to take some more double-sided tape and I am going to put it on the long sides of that zipper opening. Okay, so I'm just going to take the paper backing off of the top part of our zipper opening. You want to think about where you want your pull to open and close to. I like my pull to close to the left, so I've situated that the way it needs to be. I'm removing the tape off of the top. And then I am positioning it over the zipper. I love this method just because you have a little more control of where the panel is going to fall on the zipper, so you can make sure that it is nice and even to the teeth. So once you've got that top part adhered down where you want it to be, then you can go ahead and remove the bottom paper on the double-sided tape and do the same with the bottom part of the zipper. Just like so. So then you're going to make sure that your two zipper pocket pieces, one is up and one is down, and we are going to go ahead and top stitch around this opening. So I always like to take a little scrap of the vinyl just to make sure that my tension is good, because this is going to show. So you want your top stitching to be really good. And then with my zipper foot still on the machine, I'm going to go ahead and top stitch around that opening. Make sure when you get to the corners that you are putting your needle down before you pivot. And when you come to the end, make sure that you are matching up your threads into where it started. You can either backstitch here, or you can pull your threads long and tie them off in the back. And this is what we have. So now to finish up our pocket, we're going to take that the top lining part and pull it down. And I'm just going to trim them up so they're the same length. And then we are going to sew close the open edges. So you want to pull your lining panel back so you're only exposing the pocket piece. I like to do a back stitch over the zipper teeth just for a little bit more security. Down the side, across the bottom, and up the other side. And then I just like to burn my zipper ends just to stop the fraying. All right, that's all done. That's our front and our back panels almost complete there. Now we're going to work on our handle connectors. So this is similar to how we would have done our connector pieces at the beginning if my video had taken, but it hadn't. But I figured this will show exactly how we would have done that anyways. So you are going to find the center of these pieces and you're going to draw a line down the middle. Again, this is exactly how you do your connector pieces as well. Then I'm going to take some double-sided tape and I'm going to put it along the long edges. And then I'm going to take those long edges and I'm going to fold them into that center line. Again, if you don't want to use double-sided tape for this, you can indeed use clips. Okay, and then you're going to go ahead and do the exact same with the other piece. Okay, so now I'm going to take more double-sided tape and I am going to put it just along the bottom of that connector. Not the top, just the bottom. And then we are going to measure down on our main panel 1 3/4 of an inch, and we are going to use our ruler as a guide to where we are going to place our anchor. So making sure that the double-sided tape is to the bottom, and line that up with the ruler and stick it down. And then we will take this to the machine and we are only going to top stitch this bottom edge with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. You can do it with the back panel as well. Okay, so I actually went and I did the whole back panel to show you what we are going to be working towards. So here is the top stitch on the bottom. And now we're going to put in our straps, or if you're doing it like me, our connectors. We want the inside of our connectors to match up with this top part of our main panel just before it curves down. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my invisible ink pen, make sure it's nice and straight, and I'm going to make a guiding line. So I'm using a Soline invisible pen. I got it on Amazon, and I swear right now it is my favorite marking tool. It comes off of vinyl, so good. So do the same on the other side. And then I'm going to take my connectors. Again, if you could do this with the straps if you're not doing the connector way like I am, but I'm going to put a small piece of double-sided tape on here. You can also just hold these in place if you want to when you're at the machine. And then I'm going to stick it down right to where our seam was. We want it to be almost flush with that. So right in there as close as you can. And there's Miss Coco. Okay, and you're going to line up the middle, like the center line there, with the right hand side of the connector. You're going to do the same with the other side, except for you're going to line it up with the left hand side of the connector this time. Again, sticking it down right flush with that seam that we sewed at the bottom of the connector. Again, I like to double check just to make sure that they are the same height and even, and I am good. And that both panels match, because you do not want your handles to be lopsided. And then I'm going to top stitch right across here with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now, depending on your machine, when you get to the connector, it may be a little bit thick there. Have your hump jumper handy. That would definitely help get over that thickness if you need a little extra help. Okay, so now what we are going to do is we're going to take our exterior gusset piece and we are going to put our bottom stabilizer on. So what you want to do is find the centers of our gusset piece. So I am just folding it in half and doing a small clips within the seam allowance to find my centers. And I'm going to do the same with my stabilizer piece. And then, because I'm using fusible Decovil Heavy, I am going to line up my center marks and making sure they're out of the seam allowances, and I'm going to go and iron this on. So now I have decided I want to put on the purse feet, so this is how I decide where I want them to go. So 2 inches in from the left-hand side of the Decovil Heavy, I am going to, that's about where I want to place it, and then from the bottom, I am using my vinyl as a guide, and I'm going to do it 1.5 inches up from the vinyl. So 2 inches in from the Decovil Heavy and 1.5 inches up from the vinyl piece. So I'll mark my 4 end ones first, and then we will figure out the middle one once we have those marked. This works perfectly fine with just 4 purse feet, but my pack comes with 5, so I'm going to use all 5. Okay, and then I'm going to find the center mark, lining up my notches here. And placing a mark at the 2.75 mark from the vinyl. And that should be somewhat centered. So I'm going to go ahead and install my purse feet. I do have a class on how to do purse feet. I'll put that down in the description if you need to know how to do that. So I always put a piece of duct tape on the back of my prongs just to better secure the purse feet in place. So again, as I was explaining before, rather than cutting the lining gusset piece and the exterior gusset piece, you can see how the lining piece is a little bit longer. That is because the exterior gusset piece has a gusset top section. Now I want the top of my lining to be in vinyl as well, because my top panels are in vinyl. I want to have a seamless line. So I decided to cut it just like the exterior so they can match. Otherwise the pattern will have the cloth top panels if you've done the cloth, so whichever way you want to do it. But I want my top to be all vinyl. So now you're going to take the wider end of these top pieces and put them to the top of the gusset panels. If you're doing it like me, you'll be doing this on the exterior as well, with a slight change, as we are also going to put in our crossbody connectors. So for the lining pieces, I am just adding this in. Again, if you cut the lining piece as per the pattern, you can omit this step. And I'm going to go ahead and stitch these in place with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Then I'm going to flip it and make sure my seams are going downwards and top stitch that with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, so for our exterior pieces, we want to find the centers of the top ends of our gusset pieces on both sides. And then we're going to take our connector pieces, and I'm marking up about 3/4 inch from the raw edge, mainly because I want to have a little extra room for securing it with my rivets. Rivets are completely optional. I love rivets. So 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch, mark a line from the bottom of the connectors, the raw edge. And this is going to be a guiding line where we are going to place it on our gusset. Okay, so we're going to take that to where we just did the notches. I'm just going to eyeball about what center is, and I'm going to line that line we just drew up with the raw edge of that gusset piece, as centered as I possibly can make it. And then I'm just going to secure that with clips for now. And I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. Oh, sorry. No, we are going to take our top gusset pieces here, put them right sides together, clip them in place. You could have went and basted the connector piece in place first if you're more comfortable with this. I'm just going to do it all in one go. And then we're going to go across there with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance and do the same on the other side. So I'm back to my regular foot here. I don't need my zipper foot on anymore. Okay, and then you want to make sure that your seam is pointing down to the bottom of the gusset, and we're going to top stitch on the bottom side. I do apologize for the shaking camera that is attached to my table. I do rectify this later on in the video. Trying a few new angles, let me know what you think. I noticed my camera shaking here, so I think I rectified it here in a little bit. We will see. So again, top stitch the other side. I'm trying to show a little more at the machine as it has been requested, so it's kind of learning to see what I can do with my camera placement. Okay, so the same thing with the exterior, 1/4 of an inch. When I get to my connector, I like to go back and forth over it a couple times just to make sure it is going to be secure. And then again, you're going to make it so the connector and the seam are pointing down towards the bottom of the gusset and top stitch right along there. Again, the going over the connector may be a little thick. I don't think it'll be a problem for most, but do have your hump jumper ready just in case. Okay, so that is our exterior gusset done and our lining gusset done. So now what we want to do is we want to take our exterior pieces and our gusset pieces and we want to baste them to our foam interfacing. So I went ahead and did that. I also went ahead and put in my rivets. I always make sure I use a scrap of Decovil Heavy behind my rivets for more security. I also put on my faceplate and more rivets because I love my rivets. So now let's put together the exterior of our bag. So we have already marked the centers on our gussets, some of our main pieces. So now we're going to put the gusset and one of our main exterior pieces right sides together, match up that bottom center, put in a couple clips, and then match up the top and secure with a couple clips. I always like to do the bottom and then the tops first, and then we can evenly distribute the fabric in between these clip marks. And the other side. And in the pattern, it says you can also use Decovil Light in this. I actually prefer to use foam because I find that Decovil Light sometimes wrinkles in the turning of the bag. I love Decovil Light for drop-in linings. It's wonderful. Or an easy birth bag, then it doesn't wrinkle. But in this one, I just worry that it will wrinkle on my vinyl. So I chose my preferred stabilizer of Pellon Flex Foam. Okay, now you can see here how the gusset is slightly smaller than the exterior. So the gusset piece only, I'm going to make little 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch snips around that corner, just to help spread that fabric around that curve even. You can see how doing that makes it so it fits and secure with more clips. And the same with the other side. Okay, and again, we are going to do a few small clips just to make it so we can spread that fabric of the gusset around that corner. The reason we have to do that is we're taking a straight piece and we're trying to make it a round piece. So this just helps do that. Just make sure that those snips are within the seam allowance. Otherwise they will show. Okay, and then I'm going to go all the way around this with a 1/2 of an inch seam allowance and then do a second line at a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, so this is a brand new angle. I can't put this over my right shoulder on the other side of my machine because I just do not have the space, but I'm hoping that this will be a good substitute so you can see what I'm doing from the kind of the under the bed of the machine. So I am going to go around with my main panel exterior down against the bed of the machine at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. This also took care of the shaky camera problem that I was having it attached to the machine. Let me know what you think of this angle. I think it might actually be pretty good. Okay, so when you get to your corners, take them nice and slow. Sometimes it helps to use a pointy tool. I want to call it a stiletto. That's what I'm looking for to get around these corners. Make sure you are moving the gusset in a way that you're not going to be getting any nips or tucks around those corners. So take the corners nice and slow, just to ensure that they are going in nice and straight and nothing is getting caught in there that shouldn't be. As you can see, I'm adjusting my fabric as I go around those corners just to ensure that it is lying nice and flat. And then because this is an all vinyl bag and because I'm using darker thread, I really don't want my stitches to sew through. So I am going to go ahead and 1/8 of an inch away into the seam. So we're not... our first one was 1/2 inch. Now we are going 3/8 of an inch. And that is just going to help strengthen that seam so the stitches don't show through. Just like so. And you can see how my stitches don't show through. So go ahead and do that with the other part of the bag, put them together, and then you can turn it out like I have done here. I have also taken some double-sided tape and I have just opened up my seams and then secured them with some alligator or crocodile clips, whatever they're called. Okay, so I went ahead and I did my slip pocket and my lining pocket, different than the pattern. This is the way I do them, so I'm not showing how I do them. You can follow the pattern for that if you want to do it like the pattern. Okay, so for our zipper panel, what I like to do, you don't need your pull on it right now, but I like to mark in on one end about an inch or so and draw a line. This is going to make it easier to line up our zipper pull when we go to put it on at the end of making the bag. Okay, so now we need to turn in the ends of the opposite side. So not the side that we did the line on, but the opposite side. So as you've seen me do in many tutorials, I am going to pinch it down at a 90-degree angle, secure that with a clip, and with the other side, pinch it in at that 90-degree angle as even as possible. Just like so, and then I'm going to take it to the machine and I'm just going to tack that down. Okay, so this is what we have. That's creating the stop for our zipper, and then you can pull the teeth away from each other. Okay, so now we're going to take our zipper panels. You want to take a lining piece, and I forgot to trim my woven interfacing, so I will just do that quickly now. Okay, so on the back of our exterior piece and our lining piece, we want to take our pen and mark in 1/2 inch on both of the short sides. And do the same on the back of the lining pieces. I'm going to show you one panel right now, and then I will go ahead and do the other one off camera. Okay, and then I'm going to just make sure that they're even. We want them to be the same length. Take a little bit of double-sided tape, put it along the short edges. And then we're going to fold that short edge in even with the line that we just drew. So it's folding it in 1/4 of an inch. And do the same with the lining piece. If you're using cotton, you can always just go ahead and press this. Once again, double check that they are the same length. If they're not, just adjust the fold until they are. Okay, so you're going to take your lining piece right side up, and we're going to mark in from the left-hand side 1/4 of an inch. And that is where we're going to put the angled part of our zipper right side up. So I am going to add some double-sided tape to hold this in place. Again, you can use clips instead of double-sided tape if you prefer. And then take your zipper tape right side up, unline it up with the 90-degree curve we made, match up the raw edges right at that line. Keep in mind when you go to do the other panel, you will be doing this on the right side of the panel because the teeth will be opposite. So one panel is the left side, the other panel is the right side. So you could go ahead and baste that in place if you wanted to. I am just going to use some more double-sided tape because I love my double-sided tape. So this is the lining piece right side up, the zipper tape right side up. And then we are going to take our exterior piece and we are going to put it right side down. And this is why you want them to be even, because we want those folded edges to fall at the same place for when we are top stitching this. And then we are going to stitch this at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Again, I have put on my zipper foot. It helps get really close to the teeth without having a wavy zipper. And as you can see, we have fixed the shaking camera situation. Then what I like to do with these zipper panels is within that seam allowance that we just sewn, I like to just cut the corners on an angle. Well, first I'll trim my zipper tape up, and then just on the inside, not going over the seam allowance at all. And that's just so when we fold these panels wrong sides together, that those raw edges will be kind of enclosed within our top stitching. And then on this tail side, just be careful you don't cut your zipper tape. Cut a little bit on each side. Just like so. Okay, so now we want to fold these panels nice and tight away from the zipper. First, I'm kind of just going to finger press it and make sure that my zipper is nice and straight, which it is. You can finger press this, you can iron it if you're not using vinyl. Knowing me, I am just going to go ahead and use some double-sided tape to baste this into place. So starting with my exterior piece, within that seam allowance, and then I'm going to fold that exterior piece away from the zipper. You can see my tape is nice and straight. Then I'm going to go ahead and do the exact same thing on the lining side, bringing them wrong sides together. Making sure they line up along the sides and along the bottom. Like this, and then we are going to top stitch up the left side, across the long part, down the right side, and baste the bottom. Again, having your zipper foot on really helps with this process. And then you're going to rinse and repeat with the other panel, but remembering that you will be working almost opposite, so from the right rather than from the left. So as you can see here, my panels are done, my teeth all line up. What I want to make sure is that I have everything nice and straight. So I am going to put my zipper pull on. I'm going to match up my two lines here, and just to make sure that everything is aligned the way it should be. So what this line does is when you put your zipper pull on, if you line up that line, I'm a little bit off here, but not much. Then you can pull it on and you can just see that it's going to line up nice and good. Just to help that zipper pull go on straight, using my handy dandy fork. Okay, so now we are going to attach this to our panel. So I like my zipper pocket to be at the back, and I like my bags to close to the left. So position your zipper the way, whichever way you like it orientated. I'm going to find the center of my zipper panel by folding my zipper panel in half and snipping that center. And then I am going to put it right side up with my lining. My lining is right side up and my panel is right side up. And I'm going to clip that into place. Matching up that raw edge. I love recessed zippers. They're one of my favorite for zipper closures. Okay, then we're going to take our top lining panel and we are going to find the centers on the top and the bottom of this. And then you're going to take the long side, not the one with the curve, but the long side, and we're going to put it right sides together with our panel, matching up that center and securing with clips. You would do this exact same process with the other panel, but you will see that our zipper will be placed opposite. And that's because when the lining panels are right side together, we want our zippers to match up. And then we're going to go across this with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I have both of my panels here and I am going to chain stitch them together. So again, my zipper foot is on. It doesn't necessarily have to be on, I guess, for this, but I didn't change it out, so it's all good. So there's one panel done. Let's do the other panel. Again, we're doing this at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, and then we're going to fold this so our seam is pointing down to the main panel and our zipper panel is pointing up, and we're going to top stitch along that lining panel. And same with the other panel. Again, I'm chain stitching them, making sure my seam is going towards the bottom and that my zipper panel is pointing up. Okay, so there's our two main panels. You can see when they're right sides together, our zippers are orientated correctly. And now we're going to attach the gusset and the lining piece the exact same way we did with the exterior, but on one side you are going to leave a 5-inch opening on the lining bottom, just on the one side. Go around with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, so you can see here we have our opening in the bottom, we have our opening in the pocket. I have went and stuck my seams down flat with double-sided tape, and now it's time to put our exterior and our lining pieces together. So again, figure out which way you want your lining to be in your bag. I like my zipper pocket to be at the back of the bag. You can also see here, this is where I did the gussets differently, and you can see how above the zipper panel, it's going to be all vinyl. That is why I cut my gusset for the lining the way that I did. Okay, so you're going to stick the exterior of the bag right sides together with the lining. Okay, and then I like to match up my front and back centers of my lining and my exterior panels. Please excuse the mess that is my table there. And then the other side. And then the side seams here, with your seams open, match up that seam. And the seam that's next to it on the same side, again making sure our seams are pressed open. That helps reduce the bulk in top stitching. And then the other side. Make sure your hardware is pointed down so you don't accidentally catch that with your needle. And I like to clip them in these quarter sections just because it makes it so much easier to distribute the fabric evenly in between our quarter sections. There's nothing worse where you start clipping it together and then realize that you're off center, so this just helps avoid that problem. So now you're going to go ahead and clip the rest of the bag all the way around. Okay, so we are going to stitch this with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. I am going to do this from the inside of the bag because it is just a lot easier when you don't have a free arm or a cylinder arm machine. So I'm just going to pull one side out of the way and do 3/8 of an inch all the way around. When you get to the sharp corners before the curves, make sure you put your needle down before you adjust to go around that curve, just to get that really nice corner to get that shape that we want for this bag. So here again, needle down, pivot, needle down and pivot, needle down and pivot, and we're done all those corners. Okay, and just like we did with the exterior, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do another line of stitching, 1/8 of an inch in from that one. So at 1/4 of an inch, just to make that seam stronger. Okay, so I just went with my pinking shears in this curvy area and just snipped it in a little bit. And now I'm going to pull my bag right side out through the opening in the bottom of the bag. Gosh, I just love that matte black hardware with that mustard Mora faux leather. Okay, so double check that everything was caught properly along that seam. Then what I'm going to do is just go around that seam, and right where we pivoted for those sharper corners, I'm just going to make sure they're poked out nice and straight. And then I'm going to go ahead and I am going to, finger press my vinyl all the way around and secure it with clips, preparing it for top stitching. Again, if you need to punch out any of those corners, just reach in through the opening at the bottom of the bag and put them in place. And go ahead and clip that all the way around. Take time to do this because this bag has such a wonderful shape and you want it to be perfect. When you're top stitching, you're going to want to make sure you're not getting those zipper tails caught in as well, so have them inside the bag. Alright, so this is when I wish I had a cylinder arm, but I don't. So this is how I top stitch, making sure my tails are inside. And I'm going to go around with 1/8 of an inch. I have my hump jumper handy in case I can't get over these seams, but I don't seem to have any problems with that. The side seams are a little bit thick, but should be okay. If you're on a domestic, you may want to use a hump jumper for that, but this pattern is 100% domestic machine friendly. It's a little bit scary doing top stitching with such a contrasting thread, so I am taking it slow, making sure my top stitching is even, especially around those corners, because they will be a focal point of the bag. Remember to keep your needle down whenever you need to adjust. A little bit of a tight fit around those connectors, but I was able to get around them. If you aren't doing the connector version like I am, make sure that your handles are pulled out of the way of your top stitching. It may seem like an obvious thing, but trust me, I have sewn them in before. Okay, now what we have to do is seal up the bottom of the bag. So the way we are going to do that is I'm going to reach in and pull my lining pocket out, my zipper pocket out. And through the opening in the bottom of that pocket, I am going to grab the opening in the bottom of the lining and pull it through the pocket. And then I'm going to clip that opening shut and then sew it. This is my preferred way of closing a bag. Now in the pattern, I believe you turn it through the pocket. That is perfectly fine. This is just how I like to do it. Okay, stuff the lining back through, and then the last bit of sewing you need to do is to sew up the pocket. So your edges should be folded in, and then you're just going to top stitch this shut. And stuff your pocket back in. Make sure your lining is good and you're good to go. So all of that's left to do now is to put your zipper pull on. So match up your lines to get it on nice and straight. And then trim your zipper tape up about here. Put on your zipper end. And then put on your straps and you are done. All right, folks, that's it. That's all. We have completely made this bag. As you can see, I went ahead and I attached my straps. And I trimmed my zipper and added on my zipper end and put on my zipper pull. Put the pull on before you put the end on. I should have said it the other way around. But yeah, thank you so much, Melissa, for allowing me to do tutorials on your amazing patterns. I don't believe you're a brand new pattern designer because this pattern is just, I'm in love with it. I can't wait to make more, and I know my clients are really going to like this. So I hope you all enjoyed this tutorial. I did try a few different angles. I've had requests to show a little more at the machine, which is a little bit hard with the space I have here. My room is very small, but I hope it worked. I apologize for the shaky camera at the very beginning. We did rectify it. Moving to the machine to do a little bit more is a little more challenging as I have to figure out where to put my cameras and find the space for them and what have you. But I think after about a third of the way through, the camera's a little shaky at the machine, and then I think I rectified the situation for the rest of the video. I would love your feedback on those angles, if I should continue or what have you. Anyways, thank you so much. Today's October 22nd, 2021, in case you're watching this video in the far future. But yes, definitely go out, make the Martini bag by Sew Yours Patterns. Everything is linked down below. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye.